Okay, so we're going to do another reaction about the situation in Minnesota, or rather the many situations in Minnesota. There keep being more and more events that come into the news. It's all very sad. Sorry about making a sad video. But anyways, I think some of this is really important to think about, and I especially recommend Metatron's videos. I think he's got a really good perspective. But today I want to look at Walter Hudson, and he's actually a representative, a Republican representative for the state legislature of Minnesota, not the national America level legislature, but the state level Minnesota legislature. And this is the video I want to look at today. The Pretti case exposes a dangerous lie, but he does have a bunch of other videos that look important, including this one. And I do agree that a lot of the stuff that Tim Walz has been saying looks like incitement to insurrection. I used to like Tim Walz. I didn't think he was a scumbag back when I voted for him, when he was Kamala Harris's running mate. But now I believe that Tim Walz is a scumbag. I'm sorry. I think he is. I got fooled. Okay, so this, we're going to watch this video here. Let's go in. Okay, and just as a little bit of context, Alex Pretti, it looks like it's Pretty, but I guess it's pronounced Pretti, is a man who lost his life quite recently. And a lot of people say it was ICE agents, but that's actually incorrect. But it was other federal agents that caused him to go to the grave. And there is a lot of really blurry video footage and a lot of very convoluted theories, and a lot of people who are very emotionally charged on each side of it, and it's a really bad situation. Okay, let's go and listen to what Walter Hudson has to say. We'll make it big.
People keep saying the same two things about the Pretti shooting here in Minneapolis. They say, you have the right to observe and film. They say, you have the right to carry a gun if you have a permit. Now, of course, both of those statements are true, but both of them are completely misleading when ripped out of context. Because what both of those statements do is substitute slogans for circumstances. And circumstances are everything. Let's start with the gun. Yes, in Minnesota, if you have a permit, you can carry a firearm. That's absolutely true. But every concealed carry instructor in this state will tell you the same thing. The moment you choose to carry a firearm, your responsibility goes up, not down. You don't become more entitled to engage in confrontation. You actually become more obligated to avoid it. Here in Minnesota, we have what's called a duty to retreat, which means if a judge later decides after the fact that you could have reasonably avoided a conflict, even if you felt threatened at the time, you could still go to prison for using your firearm. That's not theory. That's the real law here in this state. And anyone who teaches carry knows it. So the idea...
Yeah. So I think that a lot of people in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, there's all these riots, and the riots seem to be forming into like basically a small army, and they're there to constantly antagonize ICE and the other police and even regular citizens, and to create these big old databases and track everyone's movements. And it's really scary and starting to look more and more like a civil war. And you know, if Alex Pretti was legally carrying a firearm, that's his right. But when you carry a firearm and then you go towards the police or any law enforcement or federal agents of any kind, you need to be very clear about not being a danger to them. Because, you know, things can get confusing, people can panic, and it's better to be disarmed or to at least inform them that you are armed, so that they're not suddenly surprised and maybe something bad happens. So yeah, you don't want to be near officers who are packing and cause them to feel like you yourself are dangerous and a threat to them in the heat of the moment when they might panic. That is something that people in Minnesota are being encouraged to do. They're being encouraged to antagonize law enforcement and to obstruct federal investigations. So when the ICE agents are doing their things, obstructing them in any way is actually probably counting as felonies. So but there's a lot of people that are saying, hey, you know, you can attack them, you can get in their way, it's not illegal, it's just a protest. Well, if you're standing off to the side and you're filming them, and you're holding up signs and you're complaining, you know, a protest is complaining. It's not obstructing an investigation. People need to be told what the truth is and not to get tricked into doing felonies. That's not good.
That a carry permit somehow entitles someone to walk into an active area of federal law enforcement, get into a physical confrontation with armed agents, and then claim, well, I had the right to be there. That's not how any of this works at all. If anything, being armed creates an elevated duty to stay away from such volatile situations. Because now, by doing that, you're introducing lethal force into the environment, you're increasing the perceived threat to officers, and you're dramatically narrowing their reaction window. Now, that's not politics, that's physics. Now let's talk about the filming aspect. Yes, of course, you have a First Amendment right.
Yeah. See, even if the law says a particular thing, and I think people are being lied to about what the law says to some extent. So yeah, even if the law says a particular thing, it doesn't mean that reality will conform to that law. You know, it's like, you know, maybe officers should not panic and take someone out after they've been disarmed, and that, you know, people will decide that in a court of law, depending on, you know, all the circumstances. But what people should do and what actually is likely to happen, given, you know, normal human emotions and panic and the amount of time they have to make decisions, those are two different things. Saying that people should do, you know, such and such, and therefore, you know, you shouldn't ever plan that something else might happen. Well, people don't always do what they should do. You got to understand that people will sometimes do what they shouldn't do. And you got to walk into situations with an awareness of how much danger you're in, and not living in a fantasy land where everyone around you will always do what they should be doing. Okay, so let's keep going here.
To record police, that's true, but that right has limits. Even professional journalists can't just walk into an operational zone and demand whatever angle they want. They're required to follow lawful orders. They're required to not interfere with the operation. They're required to respect safety perimeters, because filming and documenting does not override lawful operational control. You don't get to insert yourself into the middle of an arrest and say, I'm the press, I'm a citizen journalist, I'm observing. Because that's not observation, that's interference.
Yeah. So, and this has wider implications beyond, like, the whole Minnesota situation that's going on too. Like, I remember, throughout my life, and I'm in my early 50s now, there'd be periodic situations where, there'd be some bad guys holed up somewhere, there'd be a bunch of cops outside, and the bad guys would have hostages. And that's why the cops couldn't come in. And there would often be, at situations like this, there'd be journalists who were, like, trying to wander into the danger zone so they could get better shots and stuff. And they would get yelled at, and sometimes they would get in severe legal trouble, because you don't do that. There's hostages. That whether those hostages stay alive might change depending on what a stupid journalist does. And the journalist might even get taken hostage, or they might get in the way of a cop who was going to rescue a hostage, or all sorts of things can happen. So yeah, you can film, but you gotta follow the law and common sense. And you gotta be danger aware. I think a lot of people in Minnesota right now are not danger aware. I talk a little bit about an ICE raid that I was at. I've talked about it in at least one of my other videos, probably two of my other videos. But anyways, this was not recent. This was, I figured that it was probably during Obama's term. And I was there by complete accident. I was not a protester. I have not done extensive protests since George W. Bush's time. And I did put in quite a lot of hours, but I basically eventually decided that it was not worth my time. It's so many hours to put in, and nothing really happened. And I was like, yeah, this is a waste of my time. So yeah, I have not been at any ICE protests. I was at an ICE raid, and I was a bystander. I wasn't the subject of the raid or anything like that. And my only concern was I need to get further away. I was probably about 10 feet away. Oh my God, it was scary. And trying to pull my friend further away from it. So that's what I was concerned of. And nothing happened. Nothing happened. A bunch of people got dragged away, and me and my friend got out of the way, even though my friend was trying to get closer, and we, we were fine. So, but people need to be danger aware, and they need to not live in a fantasy world where they're just safe all the time.
And here's the problem with how this is being discussed right now in the public. People are using abstract rights language to excuse concrete behavior. They're saying things like, well, he had the right to carry. He had the right to film. Without asking, were his actions those of someone trying to avoid conflict? Or were his actions those of someone inserting himself into conflict? And those are very different things. Carrying a gun does not give you license to approach law enforcement and interfere with their duties. Filming does not give you license to defy lawful orders. And neither of those activities creates immunity from the consequences when things predictably escalate. And this is where context matters. Was this a peaceful sidewalk interaction? Or was this the middle of an enforcement operation? And the answer is obvious. Was this passive observation from a distance? Or physical proximity and confrontation? Was Pretti retreating or advancing? Those questions shape the case, not your slogans. And here's what bothers me about the way this is being framed. It trains people to think that their rights are shields from consequences instead of responsibilities.
Yeah. Like, I think Alex Pretti, from the very blurry footage that I've seen, and I've seen a lot of people that are, smarter than me go through it frame by frame, and I've seen all kinds of theories come out. And I think he had some rights that were not being upheld like they should have been. And he was being stupid. He was probably not being malicious, at least not in, the last moments of his life. There's some other video that's since come out where, he was being very malicious in those. He was breaking out a taillight, and he was spitting at the cops, and those were actually incidents on other days, I believe. But, it doesn't matter how stupid you are, if you are not causing a self-defense situation, or you don't look like you're causing a self-defense situation, then you shouldn't lose your life on the street like that. But that being said, there's a certain amount of reality that comes in, which is that if you're not danger aware and you enter a dangerous situation and all you're thinking about is slogans and what should happen instead of what realistically might happen, you get in trouble. And there's thousands upon thousands of people that are getting in situations like this. And most of them do get out of the situations and they're still breathing. But the more thousands of people get in these situations, the more of them will not be able to walk away, sadly. It'll just happen from time to time. And, there might be agents and cops that are, ruled to blame in a court of law. And in some of these incidents, they won't be ruled to blame. But does it really matter to you if you're in the grave that you were in the right? If you were, does it really matter? It's more important to be alive than to be right. And that's one of the things that the danger situations, you need to be aware. And I think that a lot of people in Minnesota are getting tricked into doing felonies. They are, now let me explain this, the obstruction of a federal investigation is a felony, and a bunch of the things these people are doing look like, at least to my mind, I might be wrong, but they look like obstruction of federal investigations. So if people are being tricked into doing felonies and they're being tricked into putting themselves in dangerous situations, and thousands of them are doing it, sometimes it's going to go very wrong for them, and their rights are not going to keep them alive. Their rights might make the agents and officers punished after the victims are gone, but it doesn't bring you back from the grave. You're still in that grave. and you don't want to be there. You want to be walking around. This Alex Pretti, people are saying that his parents were really begging him not to go, and he went anyways. And I feel really sorry for his parents. Can you imagine begging your kid, don't go into the dangerous situation, and then they go and they've got this idea in their head like, oh, my rights are blah blah blah, and therefore nothing will happen to me. And do your rights keep you alive? You know, not necessarily. Not necessarily. You gotta stay alive, and you gotta not commit felonies. It's really important.
It tells them, well, just invoke the magic words: gun rights, press rights, protest rights, and reality will bend around you. But it doesn't. Reality responds to your behavior. Law evaluates your choices and actions. And officers in the field don't have the luxury of freeze-frame hindsight. What they see is distance, movement, compliance, resistance, threat posture. And you have 100% control over all of those factors. You choose whether to approach. You choose whether to comply. You choose whether to resist. And you choose the posture and temperament with which you engage. All of which is relevant to whether you are exercising your rights lawfully or committing multiple state and federal crimes.
Yeah. So this is some really good points that he's making, and we're about 5 minutes into the video. I think I'm going to stop it here because I really don't like to steal other people's thunder. I like to encourage people to watch the original video. So if you want to see the last 3 minutes of his video, and I'm sure he's got some real good stuff to say, I'll watch it privately, and you can go. Link will be in the description. But you know, the stuff he's saying here is just so important. It's you're not protected by your fantasies, and you're not even protected by the law. You know, the law evaluates things after events have happened. The law doesn't, you know, bend the laws of physics to make things happen in the present. You know, the law evaluates it afterwards. And a lot of people are doing this thing, and Metatron has talked about that in one of his videos, and Decoy Voice has been talking about that. But there actually a whole bunch of creators have been talking about this. But these people in Minnesota that are like forming this little army, and it's looking more and more like a civil war or the French Revolution or something awful like that. They're doing this PR stuff where they've divided everyone into the good guy and the bad guy. And the good guys, they can't do no wrong, you know, because the law's on their side and ethics are on their side, and they're the heroes, they're the hero side, and because they're the heroes, they can just do whatever. And then the other side is the bad guys, and they're doing the bad things, and the narrative is that you can just, you know, you can do whatever. You can follow them around. You can the stuff they've done, you know, trapping agents in hotels and all kinds of harm, and the frozen water bottles and the whistles, which I'm convinced are causing hearing damage, and all that stuff. They're convinced that, oh, you know, because they've been designated as the bad guys, you can just do whatever to them, and that's justified. And that's a really, really stupid and fantasy-based view of reality, to just divide it into the good guys and the bad guys and have different standards of behavior for each. No, that's fantasy. So there's a lot of fantasy being involved in this Minnesota situation. And I think that people that are in danger, they need to wake up and think about the danger that they're in and just, just stay home. Yeah, stay home. That would be good, to stay home. Okay, so that's my video. Sorry about making a sad one, but I really thought that this stuff needed to be said. Thank you for watching.